Humble beginnings, 1791. In the heart of Newington Butts, a poor neighborhood of London, Michael Faraday was born on September 22, 1791. His father, James Faraday, was a blacksmith, and his mother, Margaret, worked tirelessly to feed their children. Life was difficult. The family lived in poverty, often struggling even for bread. Michael had little formal education. By the age of 13, he could barely read and write. Yet he was curious. He loved to observe nature, sparks flying from his father's forge, patterns of light in glass, the way materials behaved when struck or heated. While other children played, Michael's mind wandered toward questions. What made sparks fly? Why did light bend in glass? The young boy had no answers, but he had wonder. And in wonder lies the seed of discovery. Although destiny had placed him in poverty, Michael carried something more valuable than wealth, a hunger to learn. That hunger would one day carry him from the backstreets of London into the world of science, and eventually into the history books as one of the greatest minds who ever lived. The apprentice bookbinder. At 13, Faraday was sent to work as an apprentice to George Ribot, a local bookbinder. The shop was small, filled with paper, ink, and the smell of leather. Michael's task was simple: bind books neatly, deliver them on time. But what seemed ordinary was, in fact, extraordinary. For here, surrounded by books, Faraday discovered knowledge. Unlike most apprentices, he read the books he bound. At first, simple stories, then history, philosophy, and finally, science. The book that changed his life was Conversations on Chemistry by Jane Marcet. Written for beginners, it explained the mysteries of chemistry in a clear way. Faraday was fascinated. His tiny bedroom soon turned into a laboratory. With bottles, wires, and homemade tools, he repeated the experiments he read about. Electricity, magnetism, and gases became his secret playground. Ribot, impressed by the boy's hunger for knowledge, allowed him to continue reading. To outsiders, Michael was just a poor bookbinder's apprentice. But inside him, a scientist was awakening. A chance encounter with science. As Faraday's apprenticeship neared its end in 1812, he faced uncertainty. He was passionate about science, but had no degree, no training, and no entry into the world of scholars. Then, fate intervened. A customer at the bookshop gave him tickets to attend public lectures by Sir Humphry Davy, one of the most famous chemists of the age. Faraday eagerly went, notebook in hand. Inside the Royal Institution, he watched in awe as Davy demonstrated experiments with gases, explosions, and light. Faraday carefully recorded every detail, later binding his notes into a neat volume. With courage, he sent the book to Davy as proof of his devotion to science. Davy was impressed. Though he did not immediately offer a position, Faraday had made an impression. Soon after, one of Davy's assistants was dismissed, and in 1813, Faraday was offered the role. The poor apprentice stepped into the grand world of science. The young assistant. At the Royal Institution, Faraday began as a simple assistant. He cleaned bottles, prepared experiments, and arranged equipment. It was not glamorous, but to Faraday, it was paradise. He was surrounded by science, learning from one of the greatest chemists of the time. That same year, Davy embarked on a scientific tour of Europe and took Faraday along. The journey introduced him to leading scientists, including Ampere in France, who was studying electricity. But the trip was not easy. Davy's wife treated Faraday like a servant, often humiliating him. Faraday endured quietly, focusing on learning and observing. When they returned to London, Faraday resumed his duties, but his passion and skill were becoming clear. He was not just an assistant anymore. He was beginning to think, experiment, and innovate on his own. Discoveries in chemistry. Faraday's first scientific achievements came in chemistry. In 1823, he successfully liquefied chlorine gas, a major breakthrough. 2 years later, he discovered benzene, a compound that would become the foundation of modern organic chemistry. His experiments with gases led to innovations in refrigeration and industrial processes. Faraday also invented new types of glass, which later became vital for optical instruments. But Faraday was more than just a discoverer. He was also a gifted teacher. His lectures at the Royal Institution were clear, engaging, and full of simple demonstrations. Ordinary people, even children, could understand the wonders of science through his words. Though his chemistry work was remarkable, it was in electricity and magnetism that Faraday would make his greatest contributions. The spark of electromagnetism. In 1820, Hans Christian Ørsted discovered that electricity and magnetism were linked. A current could deflect a compass needle. This idea fascinated Faraday. Could electricity produce magnetism? And could magnetism produce electricity? Faraday began experimenting. In 1821, he built the first electric motor. By arranging a wire to rotate around a magnet, powered by electric current, he created continuous motion from electricity. It was the birth of electromechanical devices. A decade later, in 1831, Faraday achieved his greatest triumph, the discovery of electromagnetic induction. By moving a magnet through a coil of wire, he generated an electric current. For the first time, humans could create electricity by motion. This single discovery became the foundation of electric power generation. Every generator, every power plant, every motor today owes its origin to that moment in Faraday's laboratory. The Royal Institution Lectures. Faraday's discoveries brought him recognition, but he never lost his gift for teaching. At the Royal Institution, he began a tradition known as the Christmas Lectures. These talks, aimed at young audiences, used simple experiments to explain complex ideas. Children and adults flocked to hear him. He spoke not in lofty scientific jargon, but in clear, vivid language. His demonstrations of sparks, magnets, and chemical reactions made science thrilling. Faraday believed knowledge should not be locked in books or universities, but shared with all. He became one of the greatest science communicators in history, inspiring generations of future scientists. The Faraday Cage. Faraday's experiments extended beyond electricity and magnetism. In 1836, he invented the Faraday Cage, a chamber made of conducting material that blocked external electric fields. This invention had practical uses, from protecting telegraph systems to shielding sensitive experiments. Today, Faraday cages are still used in technology, from microwave ovens to spacecraft. It was another example of how Faraday's mind worked, combining theory with practical application. He did not just discover. He invented tools that shaped the modern world. Faraday's laws of electrolysis. Faraday's work in chemistry and electricity combined in his studies of electrolysis. He established two fundamental laws that explained how electric current causes chemical changes in substances. These laws laid the foundation for electrochemistry, a field that powers industries from batteries to metal plating. Faraday's precise measurements and clear reasoning showed that electricity was not mysterious magic but governed by laws. His work gave science a solid footing, bridging chemistry and physics. Faith and humility. Despite fame, Faraday remained humble. He was deeply religious, a member of the Sandemanian Church, which emphasized simplicity and service. His faith shaped his character. He refused honors that conflicted with his beliefs, including a knighthood. Faraday never sought wealth or status. He lived simply, devoted to family, faith, and science. When asked the secret of his success, he replied, "Work, finish, publish. Decline and failing health." Years of intense work took a toll. By the 1840s, Faraday began suffering from memory problems and exhaustion. He struggled to recall names and details, a heavy blow for a mind once so sharp. Yet, even as his health declined, he continued to inspire. Queen Victoria granted him a house at Hampton Court, where he lived quietly with his wife, Sarah. He turned down offers of burial in Westminster Abbey, choosing instead a simple grave. The legacy of light and power. On August 25, 1867, Michael Faraday passed away at the age of 75. He left behind no fortune, no titles, no university degrees. Yet his legacy was far greater. He had discovered the principles of electric motors, generators, and transformers. His work made possible the age of electricity, from lights in homes to power grids across nations. Einstein kept a picture of Faraday in his study, calling him one of the greatest experimentalists in history. Scientists, engineers, and inventors for generations built upon his discoveries. The eternal flame of curiosity. Faraday's life is more than a story of science. It is the story of how curiosity, humility, and perseverance can overcome poverty and lack of education. From a poor boy folding books in a London shop, he rose to change the world. His journey proves that genius is not born of privilege, but of passion. Today, every time a light switches on, a motor runs, or a wire carries current, the spirit of Faraday lives on. His name is written not just in textbooks, but in the very fabric of modern life. Michael Faraday, the apprentice who lit the world.